Admiral James Carter, a distinguished Navy officer, arrived at the airport following a series of high-level military strategy meetings. Known for his humility despite his esteemed rank, Carter preferred to fly commercially whenever possible. For him, these trips served as a way to stay grounded and maintain a connection to everyday life outside the structured world of the military. Dressed in simple attire, a white shirt and dark jeans, he blended seamlessly with other travelers, his medals and insignia discreetly tucked away. The bustling terminal, with its constant flow of passengers and the hue-hum of announcements, barely registered in his thoughts as he reflected on the challenges ahead. For Carter, this choice to forego special privileges was a deliberate reminder of the values he held dear: service, respect, and an unwavering commitment to equality. At the check-in counter, Admiral James Carter approached with his first-class ticket in hand, ready to board after a grueling schedule of meetings. Despite the confirmed reservation, the attendant barely glanced at him before informing him that his seat had been reassigned to economy due to overbooking. The announcement was delivered flatly, without an apology or effort to explain further. Carter, a seasoned traveler, was familiar with the occasional disruptions of air travel, but something about the attendant's tone and dismissive demeanor raised his suspicions. Initially, Carter considered letting it go. After all, he wasn't one to make a scene, but the lack of care and apparent singling out of his reservation didn't sit right with him. Observing other first-class passengers being checked in without issue, he calmly questioned the situation, asking why his seat had been reassigned. The attendant, avoiding eye contact, repeated the overbooking explanation with a rehearsed tone, offering no resolution. Remaining composed, Carter asked to speak with a supervisor. As he waited, he couldn't help but notice the glances from other passengers, a mix of curiosity and judgment. He felt the familiar weight of being underestimated, a feeling he had encountered throughout his career, not as an admiral, but as a black man in environments where he wasn't always seen as belonging. When the supervisor arrived, his polished smile and formal demeanor seemed more focused on maintaining appearances than addressing the issue. The explanation offered mirrored the attendant's. Overbooking, no alternatives. Carter's calm but firm questioning highlighted the inconsistency, pointing out that others were still being assigned first-class seats. It became clear to him that the reassignment was not simply a logistical error, but likely rooted in unconscious bias. Admiral James Carter, puzzled by the reassignment of his first-class seat to economy, calmly addressed the attendant, questioning why his confirmed reservation had been altered. His tone remained steady and composed as he sought clarification, noting that other passengers in line were being processed for first class without issue. The attendant, however, avoided his gaze and repeated her earlier explanation: overbooking. There was no apology, no effort to explore alternatives, just the same dismissive tone that hinted at something deeper than a simple logistical problem. Observing the scene around him, Carter's instinct, honed by years of leadership, told him this situation wasn't purely procedural. The stark difference in how he was being treated compared to other travelers, many dressed in business attire or high-end clothing, was striking. It wasn't the reassignment itself that troubled him, but the indifference and lack of professionalism in how it was handled. He felt the subtle sting of being judged not for his merit or accomplishments, but for his appearance and, perhaps, the color of his skin. Rather than escalate the situation, Carter politely but firmly asked to speak with a supervisor. The attendant hesitated before nodding curtly and walking away, leaving him to wait at the counter. As minutes passed, Carter became increasingly aware of the stares from nearby passengers, their expressions a mix of curiosity and silent judgment. He knew that such moments carried weight not just for him, but for anyone who might face similar treatment without the benefit of a distinguished title to back them up. When the supervisor finally arrived, Carter stood tall, prepared to calmly and assertively advocate for the respect and fairness he and all passengers deserved. When the supervisor arrived, Admiral James Carter was met with a carefully practiced smile and a polite but formulaic demeanor. The supervisor repeated the same explanation offered by the attendant: overbooking. His tone was professional, but his body language betrayed a hint of unease as Carter calmly pressed for more details. The Admiral, standing firm yet respectful, questioned the logic behind the reassignment, pointing out that other first-class passengers were being processed without issue. As Carter continued to assert himself, it became increasingly clear that the supervisor had no intention of addressing the real problem. Instead, he leaned on the well-worn excuse of standard procedures and overbooking policies. Carter, however, was not one to be easily dismissed. Years of military leadership had taught him how to command respect without raising his voice. His calm but pointed questions began to expose the inconsistencies in the supervisor's explanations, making the man visibly uncomfortable. Sensing that he was being stonewalled, Carter took a decisive step. "I'd like to speak with the pilot," he stated, his tone steady but unmistakably authoritative. The supervisor hesitated, his expression tightening. "There's no need to involve the pilot, sir. We can handle this matter here," he replied, his practiced composure beginning to falter. "I insist," Carter replied firmly. Then, with deliberate intent, he added, "I'm sure the pilot would want to be informed that a United States Navy admiral is having difficulty boarding this flight." The mention of his rank hit the supervisor like a tidal wave. The realization of who he was dealing with visibly shook him, his carefully constructed facade cracking under the weight of the revelation. Suddenly, the situation shifted. The supervisor's demeanor turned from dismissive to nervous as he quickly excused himself to consult with higher-ups. Carter stood calmly at the counter, aware of the growing attention from other passengers. Whispers spread through the terminal as people began to realize the gravity of the situation. For Carter, the issue was no longer about the seat, but about the principle of fairness and the quiet assertion of his dignity. When Captain Mark Peterson arrived, he exuded the calm authority of a seasoned pilot. As Admiral James Carter was escorted to the cockpit, Peterson immediately recognized him. "Admiral Carter," he said with a firm handshake, his respect evident. "It's an honor to have you aboard, sir. I wasn't informed we had such a distinguished guest." Carter acknowledged the greeting with a polite nod and explained the situation calmly, detailing the reassignment of his first-class seat and the lack of resolution from the ground staff. As he spoke, the captain's expression hardened, his jaw tightening with quiet frustration. He quickly understood that this was more than a logistical error. It was an unacceptable lapse in the treatment of a passenger, let alone someone who had served the country at the highest level. "This kind of oversight is unacceptable," Peterson declared firmly, turning to the flight attendants nearby. "Get Admiral Carter seated in first class immediately." His voice carried the authority of someone used to taking decisive action, leaving no room for hesitation. The attendants sprang into action, clearly aware of the severity of the situation. Within minutes, Carter was escorted to his rightful seat in first class. As he settled into the plush chair, he noticed the unease among nearby passengers. Some glanced his way with surprise, others averted their eyes altogether. It was clear that the incident had drawn attention, and the tension in the cabin was palpable. Captain Peterson personally returned to ensure everything was in order, apologizing again. "Admiral, we hold the utmost respect for all our passengers, especially someone of your stature and service. This situation will be reported to ensure it doesn't happen again." Carter appreciated the swift resolution, but knew this moment was a reflection of a broader issue. It wasn't just about his seat. It was about standing up for fairness and dignity, principles he had long fought to uphold. As Admiral James Carter settled into his first-class seat, he felt a mix of relief and reflection. The resolution of the incident had restored his rightful place, but it left him contemplating the deeper issue it revealed. This was not the first time he had faced such subtle forms of prejudice, nor was it likely to be the last. However, what struck him most was how differently the situation might have unfolded if he had not been a Navy admiral, a title that commanded respect and authority. He thought about the countless others who faced similar dismissive treatment daily but lacked the rank or position to push back. How many passengers, judged by their appearance alone, had been quietly relegated to less favorable treatment without a chance to advocate for themselves? Carter's career in the Navy had been built on principles of merit and equality, where respect was earned through actions, not assumptions. Yet, outside the military, he was reminded of how often those principles were blurred by societal bias. Carter wasn't angry. His years of leadership had taught him patience and composure, but he couldn't ignore the sting of being underestimated because of his casual appearance and, perhaps more notably, the color of his skin. It wasn't about the seat, or even the flight itself. It was about the broader implications of unconscious bias and the quiet indignities that others endured every day. As the plane climbed to cruising altitude, Carter stared out at the endless expanse of clouds, reflecting on the work still needed to address these challenges. While he was grateful for the respect his rank afforded him, he knew the fight for dignity and fairness extended far beyond his own experience. It was a fight he was determined to continue, both in and out of uniform. After the flight reached cruising altitude, Captain Mark Peterson approached Admiral James Carter in his seat, his demeanor respectful and apologetic. "Admiral Carter, I want to personally apologize for the way this situation was handled," the captain said. "It shouldn't have happened, and I assure you that I'll be filing a report with the airline to ensure incidents like this are addressed and prevented in the future." Carter listened attentively, appreciating the sincerity in the captain's tone. He had no doubt that Peterson was genuine in his regret, and he respected the effort to take accountability for the airline's shortcomings. However, Carter felt it was important to highlight the broader issue at play. With his usual calm demeanor, he replied, "Thank you, Captain. I accept your apology, but I hope this serves as a reminder that respect and dignity should be extended to all passengers, regardless of their background or appearance." Peterson nodded, visibly impacted by Carter's words. "You're absolutely right, sir. We need to do better," he said, before reiterating his commitment to addressing the situation formally. As the captain left, Carter leaned back in his seat, reflecting on the conversation. While the apology was appreciated, he knew it was only a small step in addressing a much larger issue. For Carter, this incident wasn't just about rectifying a mistake. It was about advocating for fairness and ensuring that everyone, regardless of their status, was treated with the respect they deserved. As Admiral James Carter departed the airport, he carried with him a renewed determination to confront the societal biases that lingered beyond his military world. The incident on the flight was a stark reminder of the contrasts between the Navy, where respect and advancement were earned through merit, and civilian life, where prejudice and assumptions often clouded judgment. Carter reflected on the disparity, thinking about the sailors under his command, men and women of diverse backgrounds who stood united by shared values and purpose. In the military, one's worth was defined by actions, not appearance. Yet, in the broader world he had sworn to protect, those principles were far from universal. He resolved to continue fighting these battles, both as a leader and a citizen, advocating for fairness and dignity for all. For Carter, the journey toward equality was far from over, but it was one he was committed to leading. The story concludes with a powerful reminder of the importance of treating everyone with respect and dignity, regardless of their background, appearance, or status. Admiral James Carter's experience highlights the challenges of bias and prejudice that persist in society, serving as a call to reflect on how we treat one another in everyday interactions. This narrative underscores the belief that respect should not be conditional or limited to titles, but should be extended universally. It is a reminder that small actions, whether fair or unjust, carry significant weight in shaping a more equitable world. The channel stands firmly against all forms of discrimination, prejudice, and bias, advocating instead for awareness, dialogue, and positive change. Stories like these aim to inspire thought, encourage empathy, and promote a commitment to fairness, reminding us that dignity and equality are rights owed to every individual. Together, we can work toward a society that upholds these values for all. Leave your thoughts in the comment section, letting us know where you're watching from. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and ring the bell to follow the next videos and be part of our active community.